The psychology of those who grew up too fast. The body that never forgot chaos. You walk into a crowded, noisy, vibrant place, and suddenly, you feel something inside you slow down. It's as if your body is whispering, too loud, too fast, too dangerous. The other people seem to continue as normal, but you feel the air heavier, your chest tighter, your breath shorter. This isn't just being fussy. It's a memory. Your mind hasn't forgotten the chaos you had to manage in childhood. When you grew up in emotionally unstable environments, shouting, arguments, tension, unpredictability, your body learned to react quickly. Before you could rationally understand what was happening, your nervous system was already on high alert, ready to survive the next impact. Today, as an adult, this reaction remains alive. Crowded places trigger the same button. Prepare yourself. It's not about crowds. It's not about noise. It's about what your body associates with all of that. Chaos equals danger. Intense movement equals instability. Too many people equals too many variables to control. For those who grew up being responsible for the peace of the house, being in unpredictable environments activates the old self-protection programming. It's automatic, it's involuntary, and it's completely understandable. You try to breathe deeply, try to relax, try to act normal, but inside something reverts to that child who walked on tiptoe, trying not to trigger anyone's emotional response. That child still lives within you, and it's quick. So quick that you don't even realize when it takes control. Before you even feel fear, you feel exhaustion. This tiredness isn't physical. It's emotional. It's your body saying, I've been here before, and it cost me dearly. You're not reacting to the present. You're reacting to a past that still lives in the quiet corners of your nervous system. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just a story your body is still trying to protect. In crowded, noisy, unpredictable environments, you quickly feel like you don't belong. It's not social inadequacy. It's an old feeling, that of having to adjust to survive. When you grew up too fast, you learned that belonging meant disappearing a little, being quiet, observing, being careful with every word. Being invisible was safer than being seen. Now, as an adult, that feeling returns without warning. In a crowd, you don't know where to stand, how to act, where to look. Not because you don't know how to socialize, but because your brain is scanning everything at once. Old hypervigilance mechanisms activate and make you feel out of sync with your surroundings, as if you're always one step behind or one step off. This feeling of displacement is common in those who grew up carrying emotional responsibilities too early. As a child, you never felt completely free to act like a child. Now, as an adult, social freedom also seems foreign. You've become accustomed to being the observer, the caregiver, the regulator of the environment, and never the participant. That's why crowded places awaken an old part of your mind, the part that needs to ensure everyone is okay, that no one explodes, that nothing gets out of control. You don't belong because your mind isn't at the party. It's on the map, on monitoring, on strategy. This creates an invisible feeling of separation, as if there were a thin wall between you and the rest of the world. But this feeling doesn't mean you're strange, cold, or antisocial. It simply means your brain has learned to prioritize safety over belonging. You don't feel out of place because you dislike people. You feel out of place because, for a long time, nowhere has truly been safe. When you say you don't like crowded places, many people interpret it as antisocial behavior. But the truth is much deeper. You don't avoid people, you avoid the feeling of being emotionally overwhelmed by them. From a young age, you've had to feel for others, think for others, solve problems for others. This takes a silent, invisible, but devastating toll. A child who grows up caring for adults becomes an adult who carries everything alone. And that includes the emotional energy of any environment. While others talk, laugh, and have fun, you are absorbing micro-expressions, tensions, moods, and vibrations. A brain trained to survive instability doesn't know how to filter presences. It feels everything at once, without asking permission. After a few minutes like that, there's no space left inside you. It's not a lack of desire to be there, it's a lack of energy to process so much simultaneous emotional information. People who grew up in chaotic homes don't rest in social environments. They monitor. They anticipate. They analyze. They protect. And that, naturally, exhausts anyone. That's why you come home emotionally drained, even when nothing bad has happened. The world demands only your presence, but your body delivers vigilance. You're not being difficult. Your brain is just trying to ensure there are no surprises, outbursts, rejections, or hurt feelings like before. It doesn't know you're an adult now. It only knows that one day you needed to be on guard. So no, you're not antisocial. You're someone who had to mature too quickly and now has a much lower tolerance for environments that demand emotional energy. You don't run away from people. You run away from the exhaustion of feeling everything unfiltered. And that, far from being a flaw, is a trait of someone who has survived much longer than they should have. When you enter a room, a part of you instantly awakens, the silent observer. You notice expressions, tones of voice, tensions in the air that no one else notices. It's not a quirk. It's not paranoia. It's a skill honed through sheer hard work. Children who grow up in unstable homes become professional emotion readers because predicting the moods of adults was a matter of survival. This emotional radar remains active into adulthood. You see falseness in smiles, perceive hidden discomfort, and notice energies that others ignore. This hypersensitivity is not a disease. It's high emotional intelligence. The problem is that your brain doesn't turn this mode off. It continues to interpret everything as if every detail were a potential warning sign. That's why crowds and crowded environments drain you so quickly. It's not just noise, it's emotional overload. It's not just movement, it's an excess of effective information. While others are just there, you're feeling everything: anxiety, excitement, tension, frustration, sometimes all mixed together at the same time. It's like walking through a storm of human vibrations. And this overabundance of perception makes you seem quiet, reserved, distant, when in reality, you're hyper-connected. You feel much more than you speak. You observe much more than you interact. You process much more than you demonstrate. It's not that you don't want to connect. It's that your connection is too deep for superficiality. Your sensitivity has led you to a kind of awareness that hurts. This ability is powerful, but exhausting. It protected you in childhood, when you needed to anticipate emotional dangers before they arrived. Now, as an adult, it alerts you even when there is no danger at all. And this makes you carry the world in a way that few people can understand. You don't feel too little. You feel too much. And that's what makes you so different. When you grow up in an emotionally unpredictable home, there is no childhood. There is only task. There is mission. There is responsibility. You become the peacemaker, the mediator, the caregiver, the one who holds the rope so that the house doesn't collapse. And even if no one says it out loud, your body knows, if you don't stay strong, everything falls apart. This type of childhood creates a type of adult who never fully relaxes. Even years later, far from that house, far from those people, far from that pain, your body continues to expect the next problem. You live in a state of mild alert, as if part of you is always watching something invisible. It's the exhaustion of someone who is never allowed to be small. The cruelest thing is that, When you're the child who holds everyone up, nobody notices that you're broken too. Nobody asks if you're tired. Nobody asks if you're scared. Nobody asks if you're okay. You learn very early on that your feelings get in the way, that your needs bother people, that your pain needs to be hidden so that the adults don't collapse. Now, as an adult, you repeat this pattern without realizing it. You solve everything, help everyone, carry the emotional burden of any environment, and only have a crisis when you're finally alone. And even then, you feel guilty for feeling. It's as if there's a part of you that says, I can't falter, I can't disappoint, I can't stop. But that voice isn't yours. It's a voice you inherited. This is the invisible weight that shapes your relationship with crowded and unpredictable environments. They remind you of the chaos you had to endure when you were just a child. Your body feels it needs to be in charge again. It doesn't realize that now there's an adult who can embrace the child who grew up too fast. Silence isn't emptiness for you, it's rest. It's the first language you understood in childhood. When the house was silent, you knew there was safety, that no one was fighting, that no one was crying, that no one needed you at that moment. That's why, even today, silence means peace. It means survival. It means relief. For those who grew up in chaos, noisy environments are not just uncomfortable, they're threatening. Their nervous system has learned that noise precedes trouble, that loud voices mean tension, that too much movement means danger. Even if you rationally know you're safe, your body reacts as if it's returning to the emotional war of before. That's why you love empty places, night streets, quiet cafes, soft music, solitary walks. It's in those moments that you finally feel there's space inside you. Space to hear your own voice. Space to breathe without fear. Space to live without having to fix the world at the same time. But the modern world is noisy, fast-paced, crowded, and people confuse silence with loneliness. They confuse tranquility with weakness. They confuse introspection with isolation. They don't understand that, for you, being alone has never been about escaping people. It has always been about protecting yourself from the emotional weight they carry. You don't prefer silence because it's cold. You prefer silence because, for the first time in your life, you don't have to be strong, responsible, or vigilant within it. Silence is the only place where you don't have to play any role. It's the only place where you can simply exist. There's a biological reason why crowded environments exhaust you so quickly. Your brain learned to function in survival mode from an early age. When a child grows up in a chaotic home, their nervous system doesn't learn to relax, it learns to react. While other children develop curiosity, you developed vigilance. While others sought fun, you sought security. This type of childhood shapes your internal chemistry. Intense environments release too much dopamine for an already sensitized system. You don't feel pleasure, you feel overwhelmed. Extroverts are energized by stimuli. You become disorganized. Your body doesn't understand noise as entertainment. It understands it as a threat. That's why you prefer silence, predictability, the solitude that others can't stand. And this neurological adaptation creates a phenomenon that is very common in those who grew up too fast. Hyper-independence when no one took care of you. Your body learned that depending on someone is dangerous. So now, as an adult, you do everything alone. You solve everything alone. You endure everything alone. Not because you want to, but because your brain convinced you that this is the only safe option. This hyper-independence distances you from social environments, not because you dislike people, but because there's still an internal trail that says, the more people, the more emotional responsibilities. You fear being pulled back into the role of caregiver, advisor, peacemaker. Your body senses that if chaos is nearby, you'll be called upon to hold everything together again. But the truth is, you no longer need to react as you once did. What your brain interprets as risk is now just a stimulus. What it interprets as a threat is now just movement. The good news is that this system can be reprogrammed. Even if slowly, even if gently, even if with fear, it's possible to teach your body that peace is not a trap. It's rest. There are people who feel emotions, and there are people who absorb emotions. You belong to the second group, not because you are weak, but because you grew up calibrating your senses to detect any emotional change around you. When an unstable adult is nearby, a child learns to anticipate every gesture, every tone of voice, every shadow in the eyes. That is empathy in its most extreme form. In adulthood, this emotional radar remains active. You feel irritation that isn't yours, anxiety that isn't yours, sadness that isn't yours. In crowded environments, it's like walking through a sea of emotional vibrations, each wave hitting you at the same time. This is tiring in a way that few people understand. It's not physical, it's energetic. It's not fatigue, it's absorption. And the most curious thing is that, despite this deep sensitivity, you often seem cold on the outside. Not because you don't feel, but because you feel so much that you need to protect yourself. You've become a master at maintaining a calm expression, while inside you balance emotions that aren't even yours. People call you strong. They have no idea of the price of that strength. This heightened empathy is an incredible gift. You detect silent suffering, perceive hidden pain, see what the world tries to disguise. But this gift was born from a wound. It was born from the need to survive. It was born from learning that if you didn't understand the emotional climate of the home, no one would be safe. It's a beautiful skill, but it should never have been your responsibility. Today, as an adult, that same empathy allows you to connect deeply with those who suffer, but it also exposes you to the emotional weight of others. And when you try to explain this, almost no one understands. But here's the truth you've never heard. Your sensitivity is not an exaggeration. It's evidence. Evidence of how much you needed to feel in order to survive. Some people avoid solitude because it seems empty. But for you, solitude was never empty. It was a refuge. As a child, it was in the quiet corners of the house that you found a little peace, even if only for a few seconds. Nobody demanded anything. Nobody projected emotions onto you. Nobody needed saving. It was the only place where you didn't have to play any role. That's why today, being alone doesn't scare you. It calms you. It's in the silence that your nervous system finally descends from the mountaintop. It's there that you feel your body relax for the first time that day. People interpret this as isolation, but it's much deeper. It's the first real break you've had since childhood. The only place where you can be whole. And this connection with solitude isn't a lack of social skills. It's an excess of emotional responsibility carried for too long. Solitude gives you back something you lost too early, the feeling of existing without interruptions, without demands, without noise, without having to anticipate emotional outbursts or unstable moods. It's the moment when you encounter your own presence. This doesn't mean you reject the world. It means you organize yourself before entering it. It means you need to empty your mind so you don't get lost within it. It means you know that deep empathy without rest becomes exhaustion. Solitude is your way of replenishing yourself, like someone who learned to protect themselves from chaos even before knowing what chaos was. The truth is, your solitude was never a problem. It was a place of healing. It was the bridge between who you were forced to be and who you truly are. And the more you learn to honor that space, the more you realize that being alone isn't about being less, it's about finally being you. For years, perhaps your whole life, You believed that your difficulty with crowded, noisy, or unpredictable environments meant something was wrong. Maybe you thought you were too shy, too anxious, too fragile. But the truth is very different. You are not broken. You are conditioned. Conditioned by a childhood where too much emotion meant danger. When you grow up living in chaos, your body learns to distrust peace. It learns that calm is an interval before the next storm. It learns that rest is a luxury. It learns that vulnerability is a risk. But that doesn't mean you're incapable of living any other way. It just means you never had a safe environment to learn how peace works. The fact that you seek silence, introspection, or distance is not a flaw, it's protection. It's an intelligent adaptation from someone who was never allowed to let their guard down. But now, as an adult, you have something you didn't have before: choice. You can teach your body that safety exists without sacrifice, that love exists without fear, that presence exists without surveillance. This awakening is slow. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels wrong, because the new often seems dangerous to those who grew up with the old. But each small step toward peace, a deep breath, a boundary spoken in a firm voice, a pause without guilt, is a powerful declaration. You no longer need to survive. Now you can begin to live. And deep down, there's something even more important. The part of you that grew up too fast is finally beginning to understand that you're no longer alone. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to carry the world. You don't have to hide behind forced calm. You are awakening. And this awakening is not weakness. It's freedom. You've spent your whole life believing you needed to be strong, that you needed to always be alert, that you needed to fix what was broken around you. But now, as you listen to these words, a silent part of you begins to stir. The part that always longed for rest. The part that was never seen. The part you buried too soon to survive. The child you once were is still there, waiting for the moment when someone finally says, "You don't have to be the adult of the house anymore," waiting for the day you allow yourself to feel something without guilt, to experience something without fear, to receive something without shame. That child doesn't want you to go back to the past. It wants you to allow a future where it can finally exist without pain. You don't need to overcome your trauma all at once. You just need to tell yourself, "I am no longer alone." You need to offer your body small moments of peace until it learns that peace is not a threat. You need to look at yourself with the same kindness you offered to the whole world when no one was looking at you. That is already healing. That is already a new beginning. That is already love. And if any part of you feels like crying right now, let it happen. It's not weakness. It's release. It's memory leaving the body. It's survival transforming into life. This is the moment when something profound changes within you, something that chaos never managed to destroy. The truth that you deserve rest, affection, and belonging. Now I ask you, with affection and intention, at what point in your life did you realize you had to grow up too soon? Share in the comments. Someone somewhere is waiting for your words to feel less alone today.